Hello, good morning, welcome to this new episode of Emperor's Path. Today we are going to be looking at part one of the Fiddle Yard upgrade. This is going to be a project that is going to be spread over several parts, so once again it's going to be mixed in with layout updates and things like this. I guess technically it's a layout update, whichever way you want to look at it. Basically at the end of my last video I decided that I wanted to take the Fiddle Yard out and start working on that, because I had planned to have 2 sidings per fiddle yard, and that never materialised because I was constantly trying to do it whilst it was stuck underneath my roof. It's basically in a very compact space when it's in the final position, and I needed to pull it out and lay the track properly. So what I've done is I've basically decided to make the fiddle yard better. Now with that in mind, we're going from having 2 lines to having 3, maybe 4, depending on how this goes, per fiddle yard line. So I'm going to take you to the last sort of couple of weeks where I've been working on the fiddle yard and show you the progress that we currently have. I've got half of the fiddle yard laid at least, and then in the next sort of few weeks we're going to be going over the other various parts of it. That includes sorting out the wiring, because that's one thing I want to make better, and I say that a lot. And we're also going to be looking at putting the points motors in, and one thing that I have the ability to do on this version compared to my main layout is I'm able to actually flip the board over and work on it, so hopefully that will make my work better. We'll see. So I'm going to go to me a couple of weeks ago and show you where we're going with this project. Okay, so we are back in the loft. So since the last video where we came up in the loft and we had a little bit of a layout update, I have pulled out my fiddle yard. The reason for that is because I basically decided that with all of the lines being taken up over here, I kind of wanted to address the fact that I do want to have the ability to have more trains sitting and waiting ready to go when I want to. Also, I went to the Southampton Model Railway exhibition, the one at Eastleigh College, and I had the absolute joy of standing and talking to Bernie and the guys from the McKinley Railway. And I'd seen the McKinley Railway in action on a large scale and thought it was incredible. It is incredible. And I'd only seen a few bits and bobs from them, but they had a small, really small exhibition version of the layout so that they could show people what actually happens. And it was incredible to see such a small layout being able to do the things that it was doing. And with that in mind, I eventually, somewhere down the line, would love to be able to technically automate the fiddle yard mostly, but if it can work on the layout, even better. But I want to start it on the fiddle yard. So what I've done is I've pulled up all the old cork and all the old track and kept as much of it as I can, and I've relayed some more cork down the middle. Now I do need to pick up some more to go here, but that's something I can fix later down the line. I've also picked up, at the moment only 2, because you'd have to remortgage to buy 4 of them, but I've picked up 2 3-way points and some insulated joiners and stuff like that. And what I've been doing is so basically it is a 12-inch or 1 foot wide fiddle yard, and it is 8 foot long. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to basically try and get as much as I could in here whilst keeping decent sized trains running at the same time. So in essence, on the centre line especially, I can get 6 coaches and a locomotive on that centre line, which is great. That's perfect for my size, because most of my station platforms are for 6 cars at the most. So what I did was I basically divided the board up as much as I could so I can try and make it so everything was a little bit even, so I knew what I had to work with. So once I went to the exhibition, I basically binge watched the entirety of the McKinley Railway videos to sort of try and learn as much as I could about it. and I picked up some other bits as well as the automation side of it. I picked up a little bit about how they build their boards and things like that. And what I've taken away from it is I've pulled the fiddle yard and it's now resting on the front part of the layout so that I can work on it easier, because whilst it's nice and tucked away when it's in its position, I do want to be able to work on it here to do as much as I physically can with it. So minimum, this is going to have 6 lines on the fiddle yard, basically so that I can run trains in and out. However, moments before filming this, I did think about the option that adding a 4th line per fiddle yard line, or main line. So first of all, let's just quickly talk about the geometry that I've worked out on the track bits. So I've given a little bit of space so that I can work out some flexi track coming onto this when it goes into its final position. Plus it gives it space for the point motors to go underneath. Now, I don't have the 4 points, the 4 3-way points, but what I have done is I've marked it up as if I had the 4, because I've got enough at the moment that I could at least mark where they needed to go, where the point motor holes need to go. So half the board is 6 inches, so I've marked a 6-inch line down the middle. That is my no, the sidings can't cross over there or go anywhere close. I've then marked a 3-inch line in the centre of each part. That is the centre line for each of the set of points to go down. That is bare minimum that I need to do. I've used a bit of flexi track to just work this all out and make sure that it's okay. So I've marked that up. I've also had coaches out to sort of try and work out the spacing that I need. And actually, the spacing that I've worked out, there's a few lines on here from where I've been drawing. Anything that's done in Sharpie is the final line, and anything done in Biro is my rough ideas where I've like measured bits out, and I can really go away and try and work those bits out anyway. But there's actually more space for the 6 sidings than I initially thought, so that's good. I have that space. But one thing I thought about just before filming is, because I've pulled up this section that's all over here, because there's no full layout, as you can see, it's an absolute mess up here still, is that if I put a medium radius point by Pico in here, it allows that outside line to continue down there as it would, albeit it'll be shorter, but it also, with a little bit of additional wood on the sides, which will also strengthen it, I'll be able to put an extra line on either side, which is great. My friend Rob at the Kiln Line has said more sidings equals better, so that's good. So that's something that there's currently a poll up on Instagram before I make any real commitments to it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to be doing the middle track on each of these fiddle yards, and I'm also going to be doing the inside track so that I have at least 2 in place. So that's the idea of the main plan behind getting this fiddle yard done. Over the course of this video, hopefully we'll see some improvements, but I know where I currently want to stand. Also, using a little trick from DCC Guy and Chadwick Model Railway, rather than pinning down the points and the track, I'm going to be using some of the screws that have like a built-in washer on them, and I'm going to use that to help get everything down. And it means that if there's any problems, I can loosen the screws and sort of adjust as needed, which is something I really want to do, because, well, it will hopefully make it a little bit easier to fix any possible problems that arise. So that's that. What we're going to do next is we are going to get, now that they've been marked up, I can start putting down these points as best I can at either end and get at least 1 line sorted. I can then work on the inside line. Hopefully soon I'll be able to get the additional 2 3-way points up here, and I'm also going to start adding the extra shoulder of track on this outside bit as well to allow me to fit an additional siding. So I'll see you at the next clip. Okay, so we're back in the loft. It's a couple of days after the last shot. So what's the main thing that I've done in preparation for getting this ready? Now, I don't have the right screws for this, but I've put these in just to hold them in place for now. I'm trying to get hold of the screws that have the built-in washers in them, so I'm
going to be on Amazon in a second to double check all of that, but I've put this in here. The main reason I've put them in the three-way points is to make sure that they stay in the same place for the point of which I am doing all of this, so that I can make sure they stay exactly where I need them to. So what I have done is I have laid the center line on this particular line. Now, because that is using set track pieces, I have just used the holes that are already in place to secure this down, just because it was a lot easier. Where I had the center line put in, that made it super easy because I just basically matched the center line with the pins that I have. I've put track feeders on each section so that I can make sure that they are all powered up. So there's 3 sections of set track down here. And I've drilled holes for that there. I've basically got enough flexi track to finish this siding area now. So I ran a poll on Instagram about putting in an additional set of points here. I basically worked out that I could fit the third siding down here that runs all the way down there, down to there. But what I could also do is fit one of the leftover points that I've got on the outside on each side to create a 4th siding per fiddle yard. And it was quite an easy fix because the point basically fits pretty much on the board, and then I just need to do some woodworking to create the additional siding space. So I put the poll out on Instagram asking what people's opinions were. It was quite a big win for the additional siding, although there were some people who messaged me about not doing it and why, and I appreciate that. What I'm going to do is, because I've got the points anyway, it's not going to hurt putting the holes in and stuff like that. As you can see, I've put the hole in for that. And I'm going to put the points in and then basically run them down here. I will not be doing the outside line straight away. I will get the 3 lines finished on this main section here. Once I've done that, if I still haven't got the extra 2 set of 3-way points to start on the other side, I will look at adding the additional one in here. But my main thing that I do want to get done is sorting out the wiring and the point motors for the 3 main sidings on here. Once I've got that done, that is the fiddle yard on one side completed, and then I just need to get the other side completed. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to sort out adding the other tracks to this. I'll bring you back in a second, but I just wanted to sort of explain how I did this. So what I did was, once the points are installed, I put the piece of track connecting to this area in, and then I put the piece of track connecting to the area up there. I then looked at how much track I needed for the middle section because it wasn't a full piece of set track, and I basically cut that piece to size. What I then did is I removed all of the rail joiners, slid them as far as I could on one side, and then put this piece in and slid them back across, and then that way this is all done. So this is tacked in, it's ready to go in theory, and I could put coaches on there if I so wish. So next piece is we're going to be getting on with the inside siding, and I'm going to be putting in the dropper feeders for the outside point as well. Okay, so following on from that previous video, what I've done is I have soldered some feeder wires, or dropper wires, to the set of points, other points that are going up the other end, and I have soldered the feeder wires for the pieces of track which are going on this inside line. Now, I didn't film it because anybody who has watched the channel for a long time will know that I'm not good at it. I'm not good at soldering in any way, shape or form, but if you want to see how it's done, there are plenty of YouTube videos out there that you can watch that will give you a much better understanding of how to solder. So what I've also done is I have drilled holes here and in similar places on the board. Basically I have soldered holes in this line here, and there's another one further down the board as well, and that is for the feeder wires, the dropper wires to go into, and I wanted to make sure they all came through, because the one thing I want to do, I said this for the exhibition layout, but I'm trying to improve the tidiness of my wiring, so if I go back to something, I can at least try and address it. So that's something that I'm trying to work on. So with that in mind, I wanted all of the dropper wires to be in the same place when I flip the board over. The joy of having the fiddle yard at this area is that I can flip it over and work on it. The problem is that because I've got it in that way, I will not be able to put it back at this particular moment in time, which makes me very sad, because that's the one thing I want to do, is get trains running again, but at the same time I really want to try and make this fiddle yard project work. So I need to drill some feeder holes for these dropper wires on these points. Now the reason I'm using dropper wires on these points is because, because I am putting insulated rail joiners on every end of the points that come through. The reason for that is because eventually down the line I'm going to look at using block detection for automation, and that's something that I really want to do, so I'm trying to foolproof my way of going forward with that. I know I'm going to have to do some changes when it comes to the actual layout, but when it comes to the fiddle yard I want to have it as ready as I possibly can, hence why I'm doing a lot of dropper wire placement and stuff now, so that I know where things are. And when it comes to the outside siding, the much smaller one, which will be on this bit, I'm going to have a insulated rail joiner halfway down, so that it means that I can have smaller trains like my 2-car DMUs and stuff separate on the area, and hopefully further down the line you'll see that. So I need to drill some holes for these. I'm also going to lay the track for this inside bit, so I will put you on a little bit of a time lapse whilst I get that done. Okay, so I've managed to start putting in this piece here. If I haven't mentioned it already, the reason I'm using the screws is so that I can effectively loosen them a little bit and shift the track as I need to. I'm going to eventually get a straight track setter to double check that everything is straight. I have measured everything, but measure as many times as you possibly can, and by putting the screws in it just makes it a little bit easier. So the point I've got up to is on this inside loop, inside siding here. I've got the dropper wires in for it, and I've just added in this off-cut piece that I've got here. So I've joined it up to this main section here, and I'm going to cut it so that it is the right length to be able to go in with this bit here. So I'm going to try and get the camera in a position so you can watch me do it, because this is something that you don't always get to see, and hopefully it's an interesting part for everyone, so bear with. So I've got the track in here. I know where the lines need to be. Now the most important part here is that I've got the sleepers out of the way, because I don't want to have any problems trying to cut it. I'm also just going to shift up the sleepers that I do have here. Sorry, it's going to wobble the camera that. So let's just try and straighten this. Good thing is that you don't actually need to worry too much about the sleepers when you're in the fiddle yard, but it's always nice. So I'm just going to line them up. I'm going to make sure that the middle of each sleeper is on that black line that I've put on there to try and make it as straight as possible, and then I'm just going to mark up where I need to cut. Now what I also want to do is I want to cut a little bit extra off than what I need. Now the reason for that is because I'm in a loft, it's hot during the summer, and I found this out earlier this year. When your track gets hot, if you have laid it in the summer, it's not so much of a problem. Obviously I'm in the summer now, but if you cut this in the winter and you cut it exactly to the right size, what will happen is that you will find the track expands in the summer and it pops up. And one of the points, sorry, I keep accidentally hitting the area, one of my corners over there had that problem where I got it so that it was almost perfectly right up to the nose, and then it ended up popping up earlier in the year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little bit off there. So I've got these Xeron track cutters. I went for the side cut version, as recommended by the model shop in Portsmouth. I'm just going to make sure that I'm on the side, I know where I'm cutting, and I'm just going to cut just there. Perfect. Also, what I've done is down this bit, I have pushed this as close as I possibly can, so that when the track is cut, if I've cut too much off, I can pull away a little bit here and there's still a little bit of space. That's my preference anyway, so I'm just going to do this one over here. There we go. So what I'm now going to do is get some rail joiners. And I'm going to slide those rail joiners onto here, past the point, so that they are off, or not off, I guess they're past the point. So usually you'd have them sticking out. What I've done is I've put them all the way on so I can move this bit into here, and then using that little bit of extra give that I have up the other end, I'm just going to move it a little bit closer. I'm just going to slide the fish plate up so that it is on that piece of track, and do the same on that bit. Sometimes it's a little bit tough and you need a pair of pliers, which I do have somewhere up here. There's my pliers. As I say, sometimes you can do it by hand, sometimes you need a helping hand with your pliers. And sometimes you do that where you go a little bit too far. So, yeah, that's about right. And there you go. So that is now on there, and what I'm going to do is, using the line that I already had, I'm just going to put a couple more screws along here. There's one just off camera down here on that main bit, and I'm going to put one there, and one there, just so that where the joins are in the track have a little bit more support. So let's do that. Okay, so that is 2 lines put in on this fiddle yard, so going all the way down here. And because it's in the fiddle yard, I don't need to put sleepers on. I might put some extra ones in if I fancy it a little bit later, but it's not necessary right now. Obviously, I've put a very short piece in here in the middle to sort of meet up between the 2 lines. I will probably test how good the connectivity is, because I wasn't going to put any dropper wires on here, but now that I've said that, I might do. But we'll see. But next thing I'm going to do is I am going to sort out the dropper wires for the pieces of track that are going along here for this 3rd siding, and I'll come back to you in a sec. Okay, so I've soldered up the rail underneath of the rails on these line here. So I'm going to just attach it all up, get the feeder wires put through, and then we're done. So, I think that brings us to a good point today of where we've got to with the fiddle yard. I'm really happy with how this project's coming along. By having it out the front here, it's made it a lot easier for me to do. Also, because I know that it is not scenic, I have not been as finite with some things, but also because I know that it's part of me trying to better my railway. I've also done some things a little bit better, or I think I have anyway. The next step is going to be adding an additional bit along this side here. That's going to allow me to have this additional siding here. As I said earlier, that's going to give me the chance to split that siding halfway down so that I can fit several units down here for my DMUs and stuff like that. But also, I think next time we're going to be working on the wiring underneath here. And then, as I said, it's a waiting game for the other bits of track. I'm going to get the lines laid for the other pieces though, so that I can at least work out where the centre line needs to be. That seems to have been a really nice thing for me for working out where bits need to go. I quite liked using set track for this section it made it a lot easier because it already had the pin holes in it as well, admittedly. It meant that I could see visually where everything needed to go, so I didn't have to sort of measure parts on it. But I'm enjoying it. In the meantime, yeah, we'll see what part comes next. But as a final bit, what I'm going to do is I am going to populate these 3 sidings just so we can have a visual idea of what they will be. Now, despite the fact that where this is positioned in the loft, this is actually technically the front of the fiddle yard, despite the fact that if I was to just move this back, it would be the back of the fiddle yard. But it's not, it's the front. Not that it matters too much in terms of the actual layout of it, because they're both exactly the same. But the reason I say that is because of the wiring. The way I've wired it is that I've done the black rail at the back, which means that it's not a problem, because all I do is I have enough swing space in the loft to be able to turn around, so that's not an issue. Alternatively, I just make sure that when I wire it up, I label it. But yeah, my wife also has a label maker, because what self-respecting teacher doesn't have a label maker? And I'm going to see if we can label up the droppers on here as well, so that when it comes to upgrading to the block detection side of things, we'll be able to. But yeah, let's get this populated. I got this from my wife for Christmas, and I've not had a chance to use it. But you know what? I'm going to today. I'm going to use this re-railer. Whoa, that was cool. Right, let's do this back one, actually. Oh. For those of you at home who are just watching this part, it is meant to be that sloped, because this is on a slope technically. The bit down the end there is actually higher, because that's the hidden yard for the shuttle. So before anybody goes, oh my god, how is it that bad? It's not, or at least I don't think it is that bad. For the record, I actually really like this. Oh, it's the wrong wagon for one, because that needs to be one of these. So the trick to doing it, if you have a long train, is to make sure that before you finish the current one, you have your next one lined up ready to go, because that makes your life so much easier. So it looks like there's loads of space on here, and that's because there is, because that's only 4 coaches. So let's change that. Oh no, I don't have my re-railer on here. Let's see how long it takes me. Not long at all. Alright. So because this is on a slant, I'm just using my class 8s up there to hold them in place. But that does mean I don't know how to safely populate this middle one, so we're going to do it an old-fashioned way. So let's put you here. So in terms of space, there is enough for 5 coaches. 5 coaches? Yeah, there is 5 coaches on that one. For 5 coaches and a large loco on the 2 ins, on the middle and the inside one. This one here has enough space for 4 and a loco, or a small loco and 5 coaches. Which means that in theory, if we're looking at what I have available, this could be a Class 50 and 5 coaches, Class 47 and 5 coaches. This could be a 4-car EMU, or a 4 coach and another loco, so my class 37 and 4 Network Southeast coaches. So the options are there, but I'm happy with how it looks. It looks lovely. So you can go up there. So look, realistically, you're looking at something like that for how it would look. So yeah, I'm happy. So yeah, I'm going to go sort this video out. That video took way longer to end than I actually thought. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you for the next part in the Fiddle Yard Saga. Thanks very much, guys. I've been Sam. Have a good day.